Hey Cinematic composers, this is our film scoring course at $4.99 that you can get with this coupon for just $99. So I'm going to create a coupon for the film scoring course. Code is going to be FS99. It's a discount of $400. Ends on Monday at 11:59 p.m. and we're going to limit the number of coupons to 70. This program is amazing because it has 3 parts. First, the course itself, film scoring, that teaches you everything that you need to know to score a movie, from watching the movie and doing the spotting session, coming up with the musical concept. It includes template documents that you can download to use in your own projects. Then we move on to creating the suite and adapting the template for this particular project. And then we dive on how to score a scene, from setting markers, tempo, time, signature. And then this module here explains tactically and step by step how to score your first scene. You know that I'm a fan of modeling, so you'll see me scoring several scenes, different styles from beginning to end, so you can see how it's done. And then we move to the next step, which is scoring an entire movie. This part of the course also talks about how to assemble a team if you're going to work with additional composers, documents, agreements, templates, all included for you to download and use in your own projects, as well as more advanced software to manage cues, spotting documents, communicate with the team, keep track of cue versions, file management, and so much more. But this is just a third of the program, because again, the program also includes the practice side of things. And here what we've done is we've compiled 90 scenes, we've removed the music, and we've organized them by movie and by style so you can practice your scoring skills. Finally, the third component is walkthroughs. These are real examples of me working remotely with my clients and my team. You're going to see how I communicate and share my music with director, producer, and editor, how I communicate the musical concept with the co-composer I was doing this movie with, how I compose some of the first cues, and then how I communicate to the other composer involved in this movie, how I composed, what patches I used, etc. And I explain exactly how we deal with rewrites and file versions when we are working as a team. And I also explain a few simple ways on how to submit music to clients. Our lowest price for this package is usually $4.99, coming down from $8.18, but you can get it for $99 when you apply the FS99 coupon. But remember, there's just 70 of these, and this ends on Monday. Good luck. All right, so now it's time to score the scene. All right, so a few notes. First, does it need a motor to move the scene forward? And sometimes it will need a motor, sometimes it won't, right? And if you don't know, just try. And the motor could be anything, right? To me, I thought that it would be something like this. Maybe adding a little bit of delay. Didn't work out. I had my doubts initially. I thought, I don't think so, but let's gonna give it a try. I tried it. And maybe towards the end would have worked. In fact, the temp track, they have something here that kind of works.
And you better get a handle on her, otherwise I'm gonna call the cops.
Now in this case I went without. So, let's start. So no music.
Excuse me, Miss Green, Michelle.
So we've got this thing here. And the first thing that we've got is a hit. I could build that hit. Again, we're trying to move fast, so I'm just gonna use this short orchestral patch that has a bunch of patches stacked. So we've got the strings, brass, woods, albion, then strings, brass, woods again. Anyway, it's this guy. So I just built this hit here.
Excuse me, Miss Green, Michelle.
By the way, I like to have my draw here. It's just a meter. And my maximizer. These two plugins are inserted in my master bass. It's these two guys here. And because when I'm composing, I can bring up and down the volume of the speakers or headphones with this. I don't really know how loud or soft it is. So when I'm composing, basically I've got this draw set at 14 for this red area here. And so basically for the loud hits, they're gonna hit the -14, like this.
Excuse me.
Right? And while I'm composing, I try to balance the music with the dialogue in a way that makes sense, right? That's natural. And that's how I make sure that all the cues are at the same level. All right, now let's continue. So we've got this hit here. The marker was set a little bit earlier, but it didn't work. And so the hit comes a little bit later. That's okay. We're going to record with some live musicians, but not this specific hit. So just for moving as fast as possible. It's okay if it's not perfectly in sync. It's just one hit. All right, let's continue.
Excuse me, Miss Green, Michelle.
So basically this is the theme, the motive, right, that I explained in the concept with the cello. It's basically there every time that we suspect that someone could be the bad guy. And then it's confusing because there's so many people in this movie that could be the bad guy. And then at the end, turns out that the bad guy is the one that we didn't expect. And on purpose, we are not going to have this theme or this motive when that person appears. Just at the end, when it's obvious. But I will talk about this later on. Right? This is not the first thing that I wrote. The first thing that you're gonna do is first, as we said, decide if it needs a motor. If it doesn't need a motor, then we're gonna tell the story, right? And you can use whatever it is, right? It can be piano, strings. At this point, it's kind of like still a sketch. So I'm gonna use the strings. Maybe they'll stay there, maybe I'll remove them. But it's time to tell the story, right? So this is not the first thing that we're gonna do. We're not gonna write the motive. We're gonna tell the story. And here's the concept. You know, the conflict release or conflict resolution or conflict reveal, right? Or question answer. Because we have established at a micro level when these things happen, now musically we can build those question, answer, right? And that's what we're going to do. And it's super easy because we don't have to feel like, okay, here's a 90 seconds scene and I have to do it in one pass. No, we're gonna focus on each one of these micro stories, right? So we've got the first one.
Green, Michelle. I think we got off on the wrong foot.
I suppose we did. It's Miss Green. I'm a widow.
Okay, sure. But you didn't have to call management.
And here's where I'm going to share with you a very easy approach to scoring a scene. We're gonna keep it super simple. Obviously, we can go way beyond that, but listen to this concept first. We have a question and we have an answer. We're gonna use one chord for the question and another chord for the answer. And again, it could be so many other things that's not a chord, right? It could be an interval and then another interval. It could be a note and then another note. Or it can be the same note, right? It can be kind of like a sustained note that goes tremolo and then resolve sustain again, sort of thing, right? It can be so many things. But for now, we're gonna keep it super simple. And I scored this entire scene just using one chord for the question and another chord for the answer. And basically, we're gonna just manage brightness and darkness. That is what we are going to be doing, right? So if we have neutral being one note or a perfect interval like a fifth or a perfect fourth, right? Then dark, from more neutral to darker, it's going to be an interval, right? If it's a note or a perfect interval, it's going to kind of like neutral. But if the interval is minor, it's going to be a little bit darker, diminished, augmented, darker and darker, right? Then if it's triadic chord, minor chord is going to be a little bit darker, diminished, augmented, right? And then darker and darker, adding extensions, dissonances, clusters, right? So you see how this goes, and you'll see me doing this as an example. And then when it comes to brighter, it's just the other way around, right? So let's prove what I just said. So if one note is neutral, right, or a perfect interval like a perfect fifth, or a perfect fourth, it's kind of neutral, it's not saying really anything, especially one note. Now, we're gonna darken things a little bit, right? We're gonna have this minor third. Compared to this, which is the neutral, this is going to be a little bit darker, right? It's a minor interval. If it was a major interval, it's a little bit brighter. It's not happier, it's in terms of like darkness and brightness, right? So we are here, this is a minor interval, right? Then we can have a diminished interval or augmented, depending on how you see this. But anyway, diminished, augmented, then triadic. When it comes to triadic chords, we can have a minor chord. It's gonna be darker than this. So this minor, right? It could be diminished, darker, or augmented. Darker and darker. Now, if on top of that we start adding dissonances, right? darkening it more and more. If it's more like a cluster, then it's darker. As simple as that, right? And now you're gonna say like, but you said 2 chords, conflict and then release. Whenever we have one of these C arcs, the conflict release, sometimes the conflict can be darker and the resolution a little bit brighter. It doesn't have to be dark and bright. It can be dark and less dark, right? Or bright and more bright. Or sometimes it can be very dark and then very bright. So just one example. Kind of like a dark chord, C minor chord. That resolves with a E flat major chord. To make it a little bit more subtle could be the second one with a second inversion. And this can take like several measures, like 1, right? Or we can stay here for a while. And there's dialogue going on, right? And then still doesn't resolve. And then all of a sudden resolves and we do something like this. Right? And then something else happens. And then it has to be a little bit darker. And we can stay here for a little bit. And then we can resolve with something like right? And that's it. That's basically just looking at the scene, understanding what's going on, and making a little bit of an analysis of what's going on psychologically, dramatically in the scene, right? Understanding where this character comes from and what that meant for them, right? What just happened. That's what I said earlier. Look at the reactions, because that's what means to them. And musically, we are speaking the language of emotions, right? And when doing music for movies, we are there to make those emotions more obvious in case that someone that's watching the movie missed something. And sometimes, and many times, we will miss many things as the audience watching a movie because it's the first time that we are watching that movie and there's so much going on in the movie and you're not there paying attention to every small little detail. You're just there enjoying the movie. And so the music subconsciously is going to tell you what to feel in case that you missed something that was there in the screen, or sometimes it's not there in the screen, but you have to tell that musically because later on the story is gonna make sense, but we have prepared them subconsciously earlier for them to arrive at that conclusion later on in the movie. All right, so we are here in this step, tell the story, right? Basically we are just managing brightness and darkness. That's it. Now as you start building these micro stories within the scene, remember to reuse stuff. Don't create new pairs of chords or conflict release type of thing all the time. It can be useful, but also it can be confusing for the listener. Generally, there are going to be recurring systems in the scene because there are a series of things happening here, but they are all connected. So musically, it should be connected as well. And then when the scene ends, then we're going somewhere else. And musically, we can go somewhere else as well. So what I wrote here.
Green, Michelle, I think we got off on the wrong foot.
I suppose we did. It's Miss Green. I'm a widow.
Okay, sure.
Okay, sure. Remember, we come from that hit. We don't know if this guy is the bad guy, but for now he's a threat. So what we have here is this diminished chord that then resolves neutral. Kind of like an open perfect fifth. This is neutral, it's not positive, negative, it's not bright, it's not dark. So it feels a little bit less dark than what we come from. That's what the scene is saying. That's what we musically are saying as well.
Green, Michelle, I think we got off on the wrong foot.
I suppose we did. It's Miss Green. I'm a widow.
Okay, sure.
Right, at this point, we've written the first part of the scene. Cool. Structure, 2 parts, 2 chords. Now, just to move fast, I'm using an ensemble patch. I like to have 2 ensemble patches, right? Because we've got da, and then I'll use another one because sometimes it'll overlap a little bit, and to avoid conflicting dynamics, right, I'll have another patch. Also, having another patch helps creating a little bit more richness. So I'll have a couple of libraries with a couple of strings ensemble patch, long notes. So next part.
But you didn't have to call management. All right, we could have worked it out.
I didn't call management.
It's that Helene. She can never let things alone. You know, some people...
So it's like, no need to call management. It's like, you didn't call management. It's like, oh, conflict, right? It's like, oh, it was that Helene, right? And so, 2 chords. And again, there are so many other things that we can do, but I wanted to keep it super simple for you to understand. And also, this is not the final version of this, right? This is just for us to have a structure. We can literally replace these things in terms of orchestration, or we can replace these things but keep this structure, right? Anyway, the structure, we've got this augmented chord here, F. That resolves here. So it's augmented chord to diminished chord. By the way, the connection between chords is also important. The more tonal the relation between the 2 chords, like something that's like 5 to resolves to 1. Sometimes it could be too much and could be distracting. Sometimes we could use it in our favor if that's what we want, kind of like a conclusion. And when we are moving chords in a less diatonic way, let's say it works very well for like as these 2 parts structure. And also it's very helpful because it's not concluding. It's a little bit more suspended. In this case, it's a 5th, F to B, but it's not like a dominant chord to a 1, major or minor. It's an augmented to a diminished. So it works like this.
Call management. All right, we could have worked it out.
I didn't call management.
It's that Helene. She can never let things alone. You know, some people all...
Cool. All right. Dark to maybe a little bit darker. For now, we are just doing the musical sketch that follows the structure of the scene. And with that, then we can have fun because we've written the most important part. All right, let's continue.
You know, some people always got to stick their nose in other people's business.
I'm pretty sure she was just looking out for the new girls on the block.
And let's see if you catch what I just did.
You know, some people always got to stick their nose in other people's business.
I'm pretty sure she was just looking out for the new girls on the block.
Yeah, sure.
It's the exact same thing that we've done earlier, right? Let's take a look. So this is what I did earlier. And this is the exact same thing. I repeated the same 2 chords. Just a slightly different timbre, right? Because it's the same conflict, the same problem. It goes up and down. And up and down, there's 2 different things, but it's still within the same problem. So I just repeated the 2 chords, different timbre, because here's the strings ensemble concertino, and these are just violins flautando.
But you didn't have to call management. All right, we could have worked it out.
I didn't call management.
It's that Helene. She can never let things alone. You know, some people always got to stick their nose in other people's business.
I'm pretty sure she was just looking out for the new girls on the block.
Yeah, sure. If almost getting...
All right, very subtle. It's the same thing. Timbrically is slightly different, very subtle, but that's what adds a little bit of interest. If these things stay, this can go way farther later on. In this case, it won't because it's music under dialogue, and this works very well. All right, so the next thing we've got is...
If almost getting me fired means looking out for someone these days. Anyway, I'm sorry you were loud, and then...
Now, here's going to move faster. We can decide to follow everything, or we could simplify. I decided to follow this part here and then change later on. So what I did is just what you see here. Violins 1, this note here. And then as it progresses, violins 2 section, this note tremolo this time, and it sounds like this.
Me fired means looking out for someone these days. Anyway, I'm sorry you were...
So it kind of like builds in intensity, tremolo, which darkens it a little bit, and then when he says, anyway, kind of like tremolo works well with, you know, the movement of his head. Also increases the intensity and it resolves. So end of the note when he says anyway. The end of the note works as the resolution sort of thing, right? I don't really have time to have like a second chord or whatever for the resolution because we start building again with the next conflict resolution pair. And you'll see. Let's take a look.
Sorry you allowed, and then I got upset because you don't know how to move in quietly. You want me to apologize to you, girl?
No, it's fine. I'll let her know how contrite you are.
So, I'm sorry that you were loud, blah, blah, blah. Do you want me to apologize? No, it's okay. And basically, kind of like diminished to minor chord.
Sorry you allowed, and then I got upset because you don't know how to move in quietly. You want me to apologize to you, girl?
No, it's fine. I'll let her know how contrite you are. Come on, girls. We're running late.
Hey, Channing.
Cool. All right. Now that I look at this, also going up, I could have done it diminished chord to minor chord and then going down. Right, this note goes to this note. So far so good. Let's take a listen to this before I hit play. Remember, still not done, but structurally, see if it makes sense. You still have to do a lot of things, but.
Excuse me. Miss Green, Michelle, I think we got off on the wrong foot.
I suppose we did. It's Miss Green. I'm a widow.
Okay, sure. But you didn't have to call management. All right, we could have worked it out.
I didn't call management.
It's that Helene. She can never let things alone. You know, some people always gotta stick their nose in other people's business.
I'm pretty sure she was just looking out for the new girls on the block.
Yeah, sure. If almost getting me fired means looking out for someone these days. Anyway, I'm sorry you allowed, and then I got upset because you don't know how to move in quietly. You want me to apologize to you, girl?
No, it's fine. I'll let her know how contrite you are. Come on, girls. We're running late.
Hey, Channing.
All right, so the next section here, let's take a look at it without music. And basically it has 4 parts. It's basically tension, tension, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Then something happens towards the, you know, middle or 3/4 of the scene that creates a lot of tension. Then increase the tension, does not resolve. And then we increase stinger towards the end, boom. And it doesn't resolve. It goes to the next scene. So if it doesn't resolve, may as well add a very serious stinger that connects with the next section. This is gonna work very well with this style of movie. With that, we're gonna watch this last part.
Hey, Channing. You know, your mom's a real piece of work. No wonder your dad left y'all. She's just...
You have no idea what you're talking
Hey, you
about.
better
Hey,
watch
you provoked her.
No, I told her the truth.
Get in the car, girls.
And you better get a handle on her, otherwise I'm gonna call the cops.
Now this part goes a little bit slow. So I know that musically you have to start building, but that build is gonna be long. So you have to plan that in advance. But I think the first thing that we're going to need here,
Hey, Channing.
boom, a hit. Hey, Channing. So right there, a hit, okay? And this is going to also hit or let us know it's like the second part of the scene or that something important is about to happen. So we're gonna add a hit here.
Hey, Channing.
We have to build tension here, but it's very uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen. So I think at this point, I'm gonna keep it neutral. So it's gonna be one long note like this.
Hey, Channing. You know, your mom's a real piece of work. No wonder your dad left y'all. She's just...
And now she's about to lose it, right? Boom, this is gonna happen. But as I'm creating the structure, see how simple it is. Just basically long notes, a chord, another chord. Now it's a long note, one long note that starts increasing in volume. Right, this part I know that I need more action, right? Because you've got this double C here, which is the conflict, more conflict. So I just write at the moment some sort of chatter, something like this. Right? That's what I wrote. And then obviously I orchestrated the whole thing. But that's what I've got for now. And then as this ends, another long note. So the first long note that we had was this one. Then we've got the big moment of intensity. And then, so it goes up, right? So we've got this note for this conflict. Then the chatter for, more conflict. And then we've got this note.
No, I told her the truth.
So we are holding the tension here, right? And then towards the end, I added this glissando. That's it. Now we need to orchestrate all this, but in terms of a structure, it works. When I'm done building all this, it's going to look more like this.
Jesus.
You provoked her.
No, I told her the truth.
Get in the car, girls.
Holding the tension.
And you better get a handle on her, otherwise, I'm gonna call the cops.
And it's not finished, but you see that's way more developed and it starts making sense. All right, so we have done this, telling the story. Now, depth. So far, we've been here in the mid-high frequencies, right? So with the kind of like in the violins, violas area. And I like to be here where I'm sketching things, right? But now depth and brightness. We're gonna start orchestrating things, but in a structured way. Sometimes that I'm not as structured. Sometimes I'm doing all these things as I go, right? Because I'm very used to this. But this is a structured way to get this started if it's the first time that you are doing something like this, all right? Now, let's take a look at this and see what we could add in terms of depth.
Excuse me. Miss Green, Michelle, I think we got off on the wrong foot.
I suppose we did. It's Miss Green. I'm a widow.
Okay, sure. But you didn't have to call management. All right, we could have worked it out.
I didn't call management.
It's that Helene. She can never let things alone.
So at this point is that Helene is where I would add some like lower instruments. Is when he realizes something and when we gain a little bit more of a depth and knowledge about the scene. So if we bring, let's say, the cellos for the first time in the scene, it's going to make it more serious, right?
Management. All right, we could have worked it out.
I didn't call management.
It's that Helene. She can never let things alone. You know, some people always gotta stick their nose in other people's business.
I'm pretty sure she was just looking out for the new girls on the block.
Yeah, sure. If almost getting me fired means looking out for someone these days. Anyway, I'm sorry you were loud.
Well, that's it. So it's pretty much everything that we had earlier. Just added this line with the cellos section. That's it. By the way, if I'm moving fast and I actually keep the sketching ensemble strings ensemble patches that I used, I'll generally layer like at least the violins one legato just to open the sound a little bit and for like the top note to feel a little bit more realistic with the proper legato and things like this, just in case that you were wondering what this was. So that explains this part, adding depth. Then adding color. Now we also have orchestration. It's equally or even most important when it comes to darkening or making things more bright. We can keep it subtle or more obvious. It depends on the level of change that we need. So if we are with the strings, we can have like a sustained note. We've seen that earlier, right? That goes into a tremolo. Or even more subtle, we can have a long note that's with no vibrato. That goes to something with more vibrato. Sometimes it can be more obvious. If we need to do things more obvious, and since we have started with the strings, that's when we would start adding other colors, like woods, right? That would blend with the strings very well, and it would be still subtle. Or brass, that would be quite more obvious, right? Percussion, things like this. Yeah? So for example, here,
It's that Helene. She can never let things alone.
we could add a little bit of low brass, like this.
It's that Helene. She can never let things alone. You know, some people always gotta...
Now it's a little bit too obvious and it's a little bit unprepared. So maybe preparing it with
It's that Helene. She can never let things alone.
I won't add it, but just for you to see. I think it's too much for the context of this scene. Maybe what we just did, it's making it sound a little bit dated or just old school, maybe. So maybe we can add something like this.
It's that Helene. She can never let things alone. You know, some people all.
And we could prepare this with something like.
It's that Helene. She can never let things alone. You know.
Obviously, it's too much and we don't need this here. I just wanted to show you that we can color things to enhance, to go more in that direction. For example, if we need to darken things, we can have closed voicing trombones.
It's that Helene. She can never let things alone. You know, some people all.
Maybe this is a little bit more subtle. Maybe this we could make it fit. Maybe we can add a little bit of brass support with tuba and bass trombone. There you go. Now the next step would be, does it need an internal motor? And I know that we have talked about the motor earlier, but sometimes it needs an internal motor, small, like here and there. So for example, we could easily hold the tension here just with an arp doing, or yeah, something like this.
Hey, Channing. You know, your mom's a real piece of work. No wonder your dad left y'all. She's just.
I think I'm gonna move it to the other side because we've got the violins here, right? So the arp is gonna go there.
Hey, Channing. You know, your mom's a real piece of work.
So I think I'll do. Yeah, because it's the motive. So.
You know, your mom's a real piece of work. No wonder your dad left y'all. She's just.
Perfect. So internal motor, it works very well to hold the tension. I think we can use it again here later on. Maybe we keep bisbigliando. The same side.
You provoked her.
No, I told her the truth.
Get in the car, girls.
And you better get a handle on her, otherwise, I'm gonna call the cops.
Now, the bisbigliando just adds texture to what we already have. It's not a motor. All right, so very important. Why do we use themes? So far, this is music that is following and enhancing the scene, what's being said dramatically. The theme or the motive is the theme of the movie, right? What is the movie about, right? And so whenever we want to talk about what the movie wants to talk about, we're gonna bring in the theme. That's what we are going to do. So if the movie is about growth, well, the main character is experiencing growth or experiences a breakthrough, we're gonna have the theme there, right? If the movie is about who's the bad guy, well, when we want to confuse the audience about who's the bad guy, we're gonna bring in the theme there, and that's a little bit of what we are doing here. So I brought in the theme here, or the motive in this case.
Excuse me, Miss Green, Michelle. I think we got off on the wrong foot.
There you go.
I suppose we did.
Then later on,
Come on, girls. We're running late.
Hey, Channing. You know, your mom's a real piece of work. No wonder your dad left y'all. She's just.
You provoked her.
works perfectly. Because actually what the motive is doing here is the exact same thing that the arp is doing. So it works very well. So this is the cello. Do-di-dim, right? When it does it, do-di-dim, then is when we change to the B note as well. So.
Hey, Channing. You know, your mom's a real piece of work. No wonder your dad left y'all. She's just.
So as you see, what I'm doing with the theme is saying, this guy, this is the bad guy, right? And he's not, we'll soon realize towards the end of the movie that he is not, right? But we want to confuse the audience. That's what this type of movies or this particular movie is about. And one more time here towards the end.
Otherwise, I'm gonna call the cops.
I think it works better with tremolo strings or tremolo cellos. So what the motive does here is like do-di-dim, kind of like just legato, and then it changes to tremolo. It sounds like. works like this all together.
Better get a handle on her, otherwise I'm gonna call the cops.
That's it. Maybe we could add a little bit of intensity here. And with a little bit of monster brass at the end. Yeah. Alright, so that's it. In context, this last part.
No wonder your dad left y'all. She's just...
No, you provoked her.
No, I told her the truth.
Get in the car, girls.
And you better get a handle on her, otherwise I'm gonna call the cops.
Alright, so we are done. This is the end of this video. What I'm going to do, and I recommend you do it as well, is I'm gonna listen to the entire cue without dialogue and sound effects, just to make sure that the music sounds the way I want it to sound. Maybe I missed some details in terms of like mixing, balance, orchestration, things like this that I didn't hear when the dialogue was on top. So that's what I'll do. And then when I know that it's perfect or it sounds the way I want it to sound, then the next step is going to be one, export kind of like the video with dialogue and music, which is what I'm going to show the director or producer. And that's how I do it. I give them access to a video file so they don't have to drag the music into their project, so it's easy for them. I also provide them with the audio file if they want to test things with the music that I've composed, but generally it's going to be easier for them. Just hit play and watch the video with the dialogue and music. Second, I will export the master and the stems, so the stems and the master stereo track. And third, I'll save the project and I'll import those stems and the master track into the Pro Tools session. So I'll save this project, close this Cubase session, I will open Pro Tools, and I will import the stereo master track and the stems for QConform. All right, you'll see that in the next video. I'll see you there.